So I thought it's good to save questions for the end because then it's good for the people watching on YouTube, but Wietse is open to taking questions now, so we're fine with that. And so we are Serverless Toronto, a user group, and yes, we started as functional service developers, but very soon we realized that we can help businesses by working smarter, not by sprinting faster in Scrum terms. And we started defining serverless not just as a tech stack, but as a pragmatic mindset for solving business problems. And we are engineers, so engineers like to engineer, and way too often we focus on the tech tools, not the things the tech tools let you do. And using the analogy from car mechanics, we enjoy pimping a car, maybe infrastructure, code, pipelines, more than driving business forward and taking them places. So we now look at serverless as a state of mind, a way to focus on business value. And I know that sounds fluffy. So in simple terms, it comes how you triage the problem. So in general, if the platform has it, you'll use it. If the market has it, you'll buy it. If you can change the requirements, do that. But if you have to build it, then own it. And we believe that this thinking can be applied to any tech stack, even on-premise. So this broad definition of serverless allows us to explore various IT topics. So, for example, in September, our guest will be Professor Joseph L. Kesser. He's a world-leading authority on systems thinking and prolific author. And if you join us, you will learn how to become a master problem solver using principles for his book, Systems Thinker's Toolbox. And these skills will not only help you solve problems better at work, but also with AI prompting abilities. And in October, we're going to focus on Java. Java has lagged in serverless adoption because of long call starts, but that issue is now resolved. So that meetup will be an effective extension of this meetup, but what's unique about it, it's relevant to all Java Spring Framework developers, because you will see how the latest JVM improvements enable serverless deployments on both Amazon and Google Clouds. So Vadim, he is AWS community builder from Germany. He will cover AWS Lambda. And then Dobrin, he's Google engineer from Toronto. He's going to cover Cloud Run and Java improvements, serverless Java deployments. And you can find 60 plus past talks on YouTube channel, youtube.serverlesstoronto.org. And last but not the least, I want to thank Manning Publications for being a knowledge sponsor for half a decade now. They donate one title at every meetup. So please do the survey to qualify for the raffle at the end. The link is bit.ly/SLSTO, SLS for serverless, TO for Toronto. And for those who do not win, Manning was generous. They created 45% off coupon code Toronto24. If you scan this barcode or go to this URL, you will be able to enjoy the savings. And before I hand the microphone to our guest, let me explain why we chose this topic. So a few months ago, yes, a few months ago, I attended Google Cloud Customer Community event, C2C event in Toronto. And while everybody was buzzing about AI and Kubernetes, I was shocked how few local developers knew about Cloud Run and Knative. So to me, Cloud Run is absolutely the simplest and most cost-effective way to run containers in the cloud. And that prompted me to reach out to Wietse from Google Office Amsterdam. And we met 4 years ago when Kelsey Hightower was set to speak at Serverless Toronto, and Wietse, you helped me prepare for that event by generously sharing early draft of your Cloud Run book, the one you waived. And then you also prepared the slide deck to complement Kelsey's talk. So thank you so much for that. And thank you for accepting my invitation to excite IT folks in North America about Cloud Run. So floor is yours now. I'll stop sharing. You're muted.
That's great. Thank you. I really appreciate having the opportunity finally to present here. So I'll share my screen. And I don't have like a very I have a whole lot of tabs open, and that's what I want to talk about. But I'm guessing maybe I should start before, because the thing I'm going to show you is a project that I built and I'm still working on, which is taking Hacker News, a news site you might be familiar with, and adding topics to all the headlines, right? So there's a bit of data extraction here. So I will So I build a clone of the Hacker News site, and it's like it updates live, because if you see the same, this is now on Hacker News, and this is on my clone. It's hn with topics.web.app. And I extract, based on the headline, I extract what topics it's about. And which is fun, because if you want to, I don't know, read everything about keyboards, mechanical keyboards, and all the Hacker News community is really into keyboards, I think. You can get a list of all the stories that are about that. And I used the Gemini API to do the data extraction. But I'm like, I think I will just start with a short Cloud Run demo before I dive into this implementation of the project, if that's good. Okay, so Cloud Run. Oops, Cloud Run. This is the Google Cloud Web Console. A whole lot of products here that are available. One of those is Cloud Run. And this is a product that lets me create a web service from a container image. So let's, so I'm here at the main console view, all the services that I'm gonna show, and I can create a new service. So I will give a very well-known container image URL, Nginx, the web server. Give it the name, Nginx. Choose a region to deploy it in. Make sure that it's publicly available. There's a bunch more settings here that we'll go over later, but the important thing here is that I need to change the container ports to port 80, because Nginx listens on that. So now I create the service. And what's happening in the background is it will pull the Nginx image from Docker Hub. And when it's deployed, you have a web service. I think this is the main reason why I am very excited about Cloud Run, because it lets me go from like, hey, I wrote some code and I put it into a container image. And this is usually the part that I used to not look forward to, because setting up a web endpoint and configuring auto-scaling and everything, it took, I don't want to learn all the stuff that powers this, right? So that's Cloud Run in a nutshell. And I will quickly highlight a few things that are important. So you can, I can configure a new revision. So if I make a change to my code, then a new deployment will start, right? A new revision will appear, and then Cloud Run shifts the traffic from my old revision to my new revision, the updated code. So if I edit that, I can change the memory allocation, the CPU allocation. I can set up startup probes, liveness probes, to the startup probes figure out if the container is ready to serve requests, and the liveness probes figure out if a container is still ready to serve requests, if it's still alive. And if not, it will be restarted. So this is an interesting setting, CPU allocation. So by default, it says CPU is only allocated during request processing. So for this demonstration service that I just deployed, and I sent one request to it, I paid for 100 milliseconds of compute and memory, and that's it. Because as soon as a container instance is idle, even if it's still running, you're not charged in this default pricing model. It's a bit function-like, right? I can also switch to CPU always allocated, and then it will always be allocated, and you will all pay for the entire instance lifecycle. And there's auto-scaling, right? So Cloud Run scales to 0. Probably the instance that started and rendered this request is already shut down by now. But if I don't like that, because I want to avoid if a new request comes up that it has to wait for a container to start, right? A cold start. And I can also set a minimum number of instances. So it will never scale down below 1 or whatever I think is appropriate. So that's Cloud Run in a nutshell. If you have questions, feel free to...
I do have a question.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hope it's recorded because I will not remember everything.
Sure.
I didn't use Cloud Run. I used Compute Engine,
Mhm.
and I had free, like 100,000 for free. But I realized it was like very, very expensive, and I'm using Vertex AI and a lot of data, and I find it was like too expensive.
Mhm.
But I was not paying. But it will be better to use it on local instead of Compute Engine for right now. But I'm using a webhook to get data, and later on I have the engine and processing, like predicting, but I have a lot of data to do it, and so I need a big compute engine. So how do I set this to like a very how do I decide what kind of power I need and what kind of CPU? And okay,
It goes pretty far, 8 CPUs and 32 gigabytes of memory. But it really depends on the workload, what you're trying to do. If it's this is great for web serving. But maybe if you're doing batch data analysis, then you can try Cloud Run Jobs. So Cloud Run Services is you start in container image to handle requests, to handle web requests. This is where you do your website or your API. But there is also Cloud Run Jobs, and that's you have a container image and you want to run it from start to finish. And that's one I will use in the demo. So stay tuned.
Sorry to interrupt so much. Thank you so much for all the information.
Awesome. I see another hand, I think. Like I'm still getting used to Zoom. Rafi?
Hi.
Yeah.
So my question is, I was actually exploring Cloud Run for some of other applications, and I'm recalling a session, so I may be wrong here. Was there a time limitation or resource limitation? Like it cannot run continuously like a long run job of hours and hours. It has like time limitation. Cloud Run has a time limitation where it it aborts after some time duration or some resource
So
consumption.
for web serving, there was a field that let me set the maximum request timeout, and the maximum is 1 hour, right? So that's for a request. But with jobs, so if you can, that's basically a cron job, right? You started and you want to run to completion. For a job, the timeout is, I think in GA it's 24 hours, and in preview it's 7 days. Let me try.
Okay.
So that's
Got it.
And that's different between jobs and services, because with jobs we'll like if occasionally we need to restart nodes, right, in our infrastructure. With jobs we do live migrate a running job instance to a different node, and you won't even notice. So that's why it has a maximum timeout that's way longer.
Okay. Yeah, I think the one which you had at 300 seconds, they said that it's 15 minutes, but this explains. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm trying to see where the timeout field is. Task timeout maximum, yeah, 140. Yeah, so that's, I think, well, then maybe the 7 days is still in preview. Yeah, but okay. Back to my if there are no more questions about Cloud Run, I will try to go back to my data extraction demonstration prototype app, which I very much like, because I used to read Hacker News a lot, and sometimes I'm like, I want to dive deeper into a topic, and this main page scrolls through so fast that you often miss something that's super interesting, right? I often open the generative AI one now because like it has a lot of interesting things. And this is a great example actually. So I'll show you in a minute which prompt I use to ask Gemini to classify the headlines. But this headline doesn't have the word generative AI in it, right? So it, like, based on, like, it already learned, like, hey, ChatGPT, that's probably a topic that's related to generative AI language models. So that's the amazing part of large language models, that they, like, it has some kind of an understanding of language and it can come up with those associations. So how I this is basically the app. It all revolves around this prompt. So I'm now in the Cloud Console again at Vertex AI, and there's a playground where you can send text prompts to the large language model. So, and this is what I'm asking. Hey, you're an expert editor for Hacker News, and your task is to read a headline and extract a list of topics from it. And if you're not sure, well, maybe don't add the topic to the list. And return it as a comma-separated list, right? I'm not even using structured output yet. It's just come up with a list separated by commas. And this already works pretty well, right? So if I give it a headline, and this is really what I do in the app as well, I just have the title and the domain of the link. And if I execute it, it will come up with, okay, so this Postgres thing with an AI interface is about AI, Postgres databases. Well, sounds pretty good to me. And I did a few, like, I tested a bunch of those headlines. I'm not very, like, sophisticated with this, so I tested a few headlines and I came up with a list of examples. So I do a few shot example prompting strategy here, right? So, for example, every now and then there is a new software releases, so I add that as an example to my prompt. And this is a bit of how I teach the LLM, like, hey, the topics you will come up with need to look somewhat like this. And that's about all the quality control that I do in my app. So I will get to the limitations later, but I think it's a good way to, like, demonstrate how to piece everything together, all the components, when you're building out an app like this. So yeah, that brings me to the architecture. I'll build it up from the ground. So first, I'll serve web requests with a Cloud Run service. And I think that's a really great choice, but I'm a bit biased because, yeah, I wrote the book. So this is a service that I really like. And to show you that I actually deployed this, it's right here. So looks like a few of you opened the site when I shared the link, maybe. So this is it, my service. And another thing I did is the link that I share. I will put it in the chat. With topics. So that's the link to my experiment. Another thing I did is I added the CDN in front of it. So in the integrations tab, I added Firebase hosting. So Firebase, which is this other product on Google Cloud, really, you can use it to add the Firebase hosting CDN to a Cloud Run service. And it's pretty well integrated because I can add it either through the Firebase web console, because in the Firebase console, I have access to all the same Google Cloud projects that I have as in the Google Cloud web console. So I could have added it through Firebase hosting, but I chose to add it through the integrations feature in Cloud Run. So I clicked add integration and picked Firebase hosting, filled in a subdomain. I could also use a custom domain if I wanted. And I had a CDN for my app, which is great because I want to be ready for all the people that want to explore my prototype. So that's serving requests. And I'm storing those Hacker News posts as documents in Firestore, right? So that's a NoSQL database in Google Cloud. This is the Firestore web console, and here is a collection with documents. and every document is one headline. So it has the poster and E tag, so I can check if it's cached in the API or not, with the title, URL, and if the score is large enough, I will trigger my thing to prompt Gemini and add topics. So here's an example of that. Score is 12, which is past my threshold, and then it adds the topics. So how do I get the posts in there to auto update? I do this with the Cloud Run job. So let me show that here. Import. This is my job, and it runs every 5 minutes, and it pulls in the most recent data. And I was like totally prepared to build some web scraping logic to gather all the new data, but I was lucky because there is a Hacker News API, which is documented here on GitHub. Hacker News API. It's like here's what you get if you ask a story by ID. So that's a JSON with all the other IDs. Those are the comments, right? So everything is an item. Comments, stories, job postings, everything is an ID. Is an item with an ID. And now you're probably wondering how I get to sync to update everything. They publish the latest ID, right? So there is also a max item ID URL code, and that gives you the last item. So every time my job runs, I will start at the most recent item and walk. The IDs are sequential, so I'll just walk down until I reach the item ID that was last persisted in my database, and that's how I keep my thing up to date. Simple, maybe a bit ugly, but it works. And I will also check for like the most recent posts that are, I think, no longer than a week old. I will check if there was an update. So I also get an E tag, a cache ID from this API. So I'll use it like, hey, was this modified since I last saw this E tag? Okay, well then I will update my version. So in case the title changes, which it sometimes does, I will run my logic to generate the topics again. Any questions so far related to the last bit I showed you? It's all good. Okay. Are you excited about my prototype? Just as excited as I am, or?
I have question, and I'm very, very excited.
Okay. Well, that's great.
What is the size of your Firestore? Because you put a lot of things. So how big can it be? And
good question. I think well, you could see the ID and it's sequential. So if I would like download it's over 41 million items.
41 million.
If I would download all the posts from the beginning of Hacker News until today, it's for 40 million.
But you didn't download it?
No. I started the sync at some point, and so I think I did also import all the 41 million in a separate experiment,
but where do you store it, and how much it cost? And because 40 million of item is a big chunk of data, and that's the kind of data I want to use. So I want to know how much it might cost, and where do you store it?
Those are great questions. Yeah. So I don't per item, I don't store a lot of data. It's just a bit of text. So if I go to Firestore pricing, I can figure out where where the costs are. Is it in storing the data, or is it in transferring, reading and writing? And I think,
yeah.
right, so for Firestore, it's actually, let me select a region, well, Belgium, that's close to me. So reading is actually, if you look at it, it's per 100,000 documents. So this might get expensive at some point, but storing is not that expensive, I think. Let me back up storage. Do you pay for storage even? Stored data, yes. 1 gigabyte is 16 cents per month. Yeah, so I think if I have this site, I'll monitor. I will monitor my billing and see what happens. Right? Maybe my hunch is that I'll start feeling the document reads sooner than I'll start to feel the price for stored data. But this is where you do like a guesstimate and closely monitor your actual billing data, because I added a little feature a bit earlier, and at some point I realized it added a lot of document reads, and it was starting to cost me $20 a day, right? So it's important to, like, there's gotchas hidden. So it pays to like read the pricing tables, figure out what's expensive. Like 3 cents for 100,000 document reads. That might be, depending on the type of app you have, it might start getting expensive or not, right? So. And you learn those things by, well, reading pricing information and closely watching the billing statements. You can also set alerts on billing, which I would recommend doing. So you get an email if you, like, I don't know, and don't, like, because the cloud doesn't make a louder noise if it gets more expensive, right? So you want to be aware, instead of like after 14 days, like, hey, that's not a nice surprise.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. Back to the architecture diagram. Yeah, so I invoke it, well, every 5 minutes now with Cloud Scheduler. So that's, I trigger the job with a scheduler trigger. And Cloud Scheduler is this other product on Google Cloud that basically sends HTTP requests on a schedule. So what it will do in this case, it will, let me go to Cloud Scheduler. Here's my scheduler trigger. It's basically cron for the cloud, this, right? So every 5 minutes, it will invoke the Cloud Run jobs admin API, right? So this is here my project ID, the name of the job, and the command, the operation you want to do. In this case, I want to run an execution, and I configured it to add authentication headers. So with Cloud Scheduler, you can call any Google admin API to invoke it on a schedule. So that's pretty powerful. You can do it like import data sets, or schedule a compute engine instance start or stop. And in my case, trigger my Cloud Run job to execute on the schedule. So I already have this job and all those items are getting in. So to add those, so my database is live updated from Hacker News. So if I wanted to add those topics, I could, in theory, write some code that sends a prompt to Gemini in this sync job. But I chose not to, because I was a bit worried that it might make my job a lot slower, or that I wasn't able to handle retries very well, right? Sometimes things just fail, right? And I want it to be like, that's typically like adding the topics. I want to do it like only once, and if it fails, I want to retry it. So I decided to, oh, and there's also rate limits, right? So especially with, so it used to be worse when I built this, but when we were just releasing all those services, there were pretty strict rate limits on the models, right? If you have a new model and it was like 10 requests per minute or less, especially in less popular regions. Let's look at how it is for Belgium now. Oh, it's pretty like but still 200 requests per minute. It's not unthinkable that I might hit this rate limit, right? So I wanted to like have some more, like make it a bit more reliable. So that's why I added cloud tasks. So for my code, I created a cloud task, and I sent it to a queue. And this is my queue stories. And what's great about cloud tasks is that you'll send requests to it, like, hey, do this thing for me. I'll get to doing the thing later, but you can set rate limits on it. So this queue, for example, allows a maximum of 3 dispatches per second, which is way lower than the rate limit I have, and also a maximum number of dispatches at the same time. So if you want to do anything with rate limiting, especially if you're calling external APIs, it's really great to go through Cloud Tasks. Because Cloud Task is very similar to Cloud Scheduler in the sense that you can submit a task, give it an HTTP URL, and in my case, a post body, because what I want to do is I want to call the Gemini API, or no, I want to start another Cloud Run job execution. I'll give it as parameters the ID of the item I want to handle. Let me show it in the picture. So I trigger a job. So that's the thing I do from task. So my sync job determines, hey, this is a story I want to process. So it will add it as a task to the task queue. And then in the task, it will say, okay, call the Cloud Run job admin API with these parameters. And Cloud Task will do that for you. And if the call fails, then it will retry it. And it will rate limit it, so you won't go over the rate limit. And this is a pattern that's more broadly useful than, well, in this case, I do a Cloud Run job, but maybe I'm building a system that needs to periodically update something to an external system and has really strong rate limits. This is not an uncommon scenario. Then Cloud Task is also a great solution. And it's also, well, serverless. You don't have to think about how the infrastructure works. You just have this job that you need to be done. Yes, so I prompt Gemini for the topics, and I write them into Firestore. Any questions about this part? No need to be shy. Maybe I just explained it very clearly. That's also possible. Like, it sometimes happens. Okay. Maybe I should show how I write my code, because there's another Google Cloud project that's great to highlight, which is Cloud Workstations. The thing I don't like is that it has, well, I will first show what I like about it. So I can create a workstation, which is a VM I can start on demand, and it will have a web-based editor on it, which is Visual Studio Code. So, and this is pretty awesome because I can check out my code, categorize Hacker News, and I can work through it. And like, there's also IntelliJ, and I don't remember what the third editor is, but like I like Visual Studio Code, so I can work with this. I can even start it locally. Like I got a terminal on this host, and I can do. No, I need to remember. Maybe this is the thing. It's been a while since I last touched the code assist project. Oh, maybe it's already running. So, and that means I can, where's the button? It's listening. Yeah, so it's listening on a port. So I can open a preview of the port of this VM that's running in the cloud and not on my local workstation. I can view open ports. So I can view that there's an internal server error. Oh, that's awesome. Permission denied. Yeah, I should probably add a service account. Well, but like that's not the point of showing this. So I have a VM that I can use. I can code in it. I can run services on it. I can even give it an IP address in my VPC network. So if I have my developer project. I have I don't know, a SQL database instance that I'm running. I don't want to expose it to the internet because, well, it's not a good idea to expose your developer SQL station instance to the internet, right? So, but I can reach it from my web IDE, and it's all protected by the login of my Google Cloud Web Console. So it's Cloud Workstation. Yeah, so let's discuss some limitations of this. So I built the site. It's pretty useful. I like that I can sort by topic. But there's a few limitations. So I do know, other than what comes by default, and I can show that from the... So every now and then a job will fail because the safety filter triggers on a headline. So here's the story. Every now and then it will fail, and usually it's a safety filter thing. I should probably here container called exit. Here, Elon Musk has become the biggest hypocrite on free speech. Article by a respected newspaper, The Guardian, but apparently I set the safety settings a bit too restrictive because it's blocked the prompt, right? So Gemini does try to help me preventing sending input to it that's not too great to show on my side. But I didn't do anything. I didn't think about this problem yet. Another thing is that it will have like categories like AI, but also artificial intelligence, right? Those are clearly overlapping. So I need to think of a way to merge those two together. So, but that's the next phase of this project. I'm pretty happy with the result I have so far, and it's a great way to demonstrate how to tie all these components together. I also have a few links I want to share with you. So one is, of course, my amazing prototype. I hope you all like it just as much as I do. Feel free to use it. Tell me what you like and don't like about it. I also have a blog. And finally, August 21st, Google is organizing an event that's called Run AI with Cloud Run, which is a live stream, and it's a launch I'm very excited on. Like, I spent the past 3 months of my working life working on this launch, and if you look at the speakers, I can't obviously tell you what it's about because, well, that's the secret. But if you look at the speakers, I think you can like sort of figure out maybe what we'll be launching, and that's about the hints I will give. So there, okay, I will point one out. There's NVIDIA. There is the founder of Llama, which is an LLM inference server framework, and then Frank, like a very well-esteemed colleague, who's been like building out the serverless infrastructure for the almost past decade, engineering director. So this is a pretty important event. I'm going to listen. I hope you will too. I shared the link in the chat. So if there's any more, like, we can go to completely unstructured Q&A now, if it's up to me. Daniel, you're still muted.
Sorry, I have double mute. So that's it. So we can go through official Q&A now.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I've never used Cloud Tasks before. Like, could I use a PubSub or Celery instead of it, or?
PubSub. Also, yeah, you can also. When I would recommend using PubSub over Cloud Tasks, if you want to have more than 500 requests per second, because that's the maximum rate limit of Cloud Tasks. But PubSub doesn't have rate limits, so it will support scale, right? It can scale to, like, they count it into like in the order of megabytes per second. That's the volume you can push with PubSub. But and it's really hard to rate limit it.
Hmm.
Cloud
I
Tasks
call
will-
it a black hole of information.
Yes, but it
Just-
will, like, if you set up a push subscription just to make it similar to Cloud Tasks,
Yes.
it will just throw all the data back to you just as fast as you can put it in, right? So, and then Cloud Tasks is like, well, for application integration scenarios like I'm showing here, Cloud Tasks is definitely the
Mhm.
best.
Thank you. I'll give it a try. This is beautiful. And the code is available on GitHub repo as well for people to contribute to your idea.
The repository I shared now, I didn't open source it yet because I have to
Okay.
go through a
I
bit
see.
of bureaucracy inside of Google to
I see. I see.
share code with it. But, I will at some point.
That's fair. That's fair. Awesome. Thank you so much. I learned a lot today. So there are some questions in the chat here.
Yeah,
So
fine.
one of the questions, if you can see, is can we use Firebase for multimodal data too, or only text? And then, so that's the first part of the question. Second one we'll address later about Chrome.
Okay, so if I want to store data in Firestore, I think you'll find the record limitation of, from the top of my head, is 10 megabytes. I'm not convinced. Like, if it depends on how large the data is that you want to store. Where is this restrictions? Because if you have like pretty large images, you might want to store those in cloud storage and then store the cloud storage link in Firestore instead, right?
Yeah, that's the traditional pattern to keep just the point.
Yeah, but if it's really small, you think it's like you want to, because also storing a lot of data in Firestore. If it's image data, it will get more expensive sooner than cloud storage will. So
Anupa, so the question is two parts of the question. Second one is about vector databases. So what do you recommend? So ChromaDB is definitely no go to me. It's a single, like it's for goofing around. Like
yeah,
Pinecone gets too expensive. So what would you do for vector databases?
Yeah, I'm wearing my Google hat, so most of the databases on Google Cloud have vector support, right? So Cloud SQL Postgres instances come by default with PG Vector enabled and installed, so you can just store the vectors in Postgres. I really like Postgres because it's the database that's eating all the other databases, right? Remember back when we had document databases and you couldn't store JSON in Postgres? Well, you can today, right?
Yes.
That's if you're designing a system and you want to have long-term viability, or like long-term, how do you say, don't want to change your database every 5 years, then Postgres is a good bet. But hey, today, I think all the dedicated vector databases are probably way ahead of Postgres, right? Because they exist to solve this very specific problem and do it in a great way. I'm hearing great stories about Weave8 as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Same here.
I agree.
Yeah.
But it adds a cost as well, to the service. So there is one more question, but maybe before we go. So I love the fact that you showed serverless database Firestore, but we touched on Postgres. It does cost to run Postgres. So is like being on the cheap side, my choice is a Supabase or Neo. And none of them, I think, runs in GCP. So there is like this latency between GCP and other cloud. What would you recommend people on the cheap for Postgres?
I really want to have a serverless SQL database for transaction processing in Google Cloud, but we don't have one. What might be good to look at is, I think it was CockroachDB. Do you have a serverless Postgres-like?
So two commercial ones that I'm goofing with is Neon and Supabase, but haven't received the bill. It was just for POCs. Anybody in this group with experience of any of the two? Or three? No. So we can move to the next question. Let's assume this is Eddie. Let's assume I keep my source code in GitHub. How do you connect my source code repo? So that was at the beginning of the presentation. Maybe you can.
Oh, yeah, sure. How do I connect? There is an easy way in the Cloud Run console to do this. So I can create a service and then continuous deploy from a GitHub repository, and this wizard will guide you through setting up all the elements there. So you install the cloud build GitHub app, configure cloud build, set up a trigger to start a new revision deployment and build at every commit. So that's, I think, the easiest way.
And then I'm scrolling through the questions. So there is one, can a Cloud Run Python app that uses PyTorch and other ML libraries run on Cloud Run? What about GPUs?
I really recommend, I can't really say anything in a public event about our roadmap, but I do recommend signing up for this live stream where this senior product director for NVIDIA will be joining us.
Awesome. I'm smiling. I'll be there. So these are the questions here, guys. Don't feel shy. Feel free to unmute yourself, turn on camera, and ask questions. There were some questions I sent to you before the meetup. I don't know if there is anyone. Like personally, most of the sites are not public. So how would you go about securing it? So, and there are two ways: this intranet and extranet. Do you have an answers?
Yeah, well, so there's private services inside of your VPC network. So there are several ways on like in how you can do that with Cloud Run. One is adding an internal load balancer. You can give a Cloud Run service an internal IP address, so you can, like, then it's only reachable, and then you disable the access from the public internet to the Cloud Run service. So that's one way. You can protect it using Cloud IAM. So, but that's like for a private microservice inside of your network. And there's a whole guide about the various options that we have. Private networking Cloud Run. I wish this was easier because there's a lot of friction in service-to-service communication with Cloud Run, and we have some features in the roadmap that will make this easier in the future. But today it's either use Cloud IAM to protect the service, and then you need to pass a OIDC token signed by Google, which you can use. You can pretty much easily create using the client libraries, but I don't like that. It's a bit of extra logic that you need to add to your app if you want to reach this private service. And the other one is to go to the VPC route. So you can set a Cloud Run service to, let me show it in the console. This Nginx service, for example, I can set it to be, no, not here. Maybe here, networking. Yes, I can set it to be internal. And in that case, it will only allow traffic from inside the VPC. It also means that, and this is this is an important thing, like by default, the Cloud Run service itself doesn't run in the VPC, right? So you need to route all the egress traffic from Cloud Run over the VPC for this to work. But that's also a good option. So I will set my backend service to internal, and then my front-end service will make sure to egress over the VPC, and then it will work. So that's for internal services. Authenticating your users is there's Cloud IAP, right? So you can create Cloud IAP. Identity aware proxy, that's the word. It's a bit late for me, so I don't have all the the words ready at every second. Yeah, so you can set up authentication there, and you can add Cloud Run as a backend to it.
That's a good one when you have a control group of people to give access to with my groups later.
Yeah, if this is especially for internal apps inside of your company, right?
Yes,
you already have
apps.
all the identities set up, and then adding IAP is a great way to share it internally.
Yeah. And then for public users, so once you could sign off, and then everybody has public users that would use Auth0 or Okta or Firebase. Like you already use
Firebase, of course. Like still wearing the Google hat here, right? Cloud Identity, Firebase, yeah.
You're right, because you use already CDN for that, yes, and the storage SQL, yeah. Cool. So that's my question. Anybody else has questions?
Hello. Hi. So I actually wanted to go back a little bit. I wanted to ask a question, but the conversation moved a bit. But in terms of, it seems you store your code in a workstation. So I just wanted to know why that is, as opposed to what you had showed before, connecting with a repo, setting up CI/CD.
Oh,
So I think you had mentioned it was like a Google policy, but I was just wondering if there's any other reason for that.
I wanted to show it because I think cloud, like the whole idea of having a VM in the cloud that has all your code and you can easily work with it is a great idea. I still also use my editor on my localhost every now and then. There's one link I want to share, which is idx.google.com, which is cloud workstations, but then the consumer version of it, which is pretty awesome. You can get so you can get the editor web-based. You can create. Let me see where. I think I had. Oh, they are having an incident for new workspaces. Okay. Let me see where the thing is that I had. Oh, I had a Go app here already. Yeah. So you can connect it to GitHub, put your code into IDX, and you get a VM, which is actually Cloud Workstations because IDX is built on top of Cloud Workstations. Because that's the drawback of Cloud Workstations. If you're you have to pay for a cluster, and that's not cheap. So it will be like $100 for just having a Cloud Workstation in your cloud project. So if you don't like that, IDX is a really great alternative for it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and if you're working in a team, it's easy. You can create these templates and share them with everyone, and everyone has the same like settings and everything set up. Like that's super convenient. And I don't need to have like this big expensive MacBook anymore to make sure I can develop comfortably.
Okay, because recently, funnily enough, I had to essentially create like a local Docker solution so that everyone had similar environments working with, but this actually sounds like a good idea, something I can look into.
Yeah, it has a lot of those like the same benefits, but then it's all packaged into a website. But the big drawback is that you cannot work in a train with spotty internet access anymore. So.
Awesome. Any other questions? Folks, do the survey, bit.ly SLSTO. You're going to get free not O'Reilly mining product at the end. I'll copy the link in the chat. So don't be shy, like folks. How does this sound to you? No question, stupid question. So maybe we can cover some more of the ideas I shared with you before the event. Because like Knative explained the relationship to Kubernetes, and I've noticed support for Kubernetes fast. There is even pages of migrating from Kubernetes to Cloud Run. How would you go about those?
Why would you choose one of the other, or the answer, like, or like if you really like having this Cloud Run experience, like we intentionally designed this product to be easy for developers to use and to be more productive, because we want you to focus on building your system and not configuring the infrastructure. But that does mean that we abstract away some things that you might want to customize, right? So if you really like Kubernetes and the whole ecosystem around it, then do that. But if you like the value proposition of Cloud Run, you choose that. And also the for some workloads, especially those that are very spiky, Cloud Run can. I didn't even show the auto scaling, but Cloud Run can scale very fast from 0 to up to 1,000 container instances. So if you have a workload that has that capability or traffic property, like being very spiky, then Cloud Run might be way more cost efficient for you. Because if you want to have fast scaling on a GKE cluster or a Kubernetes cluster, then and it needs to be really fast, right? So you don't want to wait on getting the VMs ready. Then Cloud Run does that way faster. So I think that's more or less the trade-off.
Any questions on that topic? Is there anything you wish we asked?
Favorite sport in the Olympics? No.
For Canadian swimming, 8 medals.
Yeah, Dutch rowing team did very well this year. So.
Curtis is saying this is very complicated, advanced topic, but in a way, this is simplest way to do advanced, complex things. Personally.
Yeah, it's a really great product if you have like a use case that fits it, and we're working hard to make it more capable. Like that's what we started with, web services, but then we like, okay, maybe I want to run a job thing, right? So we added Cloud Run jobs. So it can do everything.
I shared the link with the audience. There is a Reddit thread about Cloud Run, how people amazed are. So you're not biased. Like I liked it. My favorite service was BigQuery, and then now it's Cloud Run. So maybe okay, just to fill in we still have the time for questions. Like you presented at Cloud Next, and it was together with LangChain folks.
Yeah,
a LangServe. So that's another nice idea to run long-running.
What I presented at Next was I demonstrated how to build a way to ask questions over the Cloud Run release notes. I might have actually have the demo running here.
See, he's not paying for service to be available, so it can stay.
Oh, but it's also failing now. Oh, because I shut down my Cloud SQL instance.
I see.
Of course, I don't want to be paying for stuff that's all done. Oh, I deleted it even. Okay, so no chance of getting this up.
But folks can watch the recording on YouTube from that conference. It's recent. It's cool. I thoroughly enjoyed it following the tutorial.
Yeah, so I wrote a blog about this as well. And on the top, there is a link to a code lab. And there's also a YouTube video. There you go. With loud music.
I sort of have a question.
Yes.
So I'm out of work right now. I'm basically a cloud developer application, not the infrastructure. I know the infrastructure, but that wasn't my specialty. But what seems to happen is that there are a lot of places that want you to know everything, like the infrastructure, and know how to do TypeScript, Lambda, and all of that. Well, I'm in AWS, but function in Google. And I think this is like a godsend in that way, that you don't have to worry about that, just to get everything up and running, and then later on you can deal about the infrastructure if you want. Have you noticed something like that? Anything, that tendency, or?
Yeah, and that's one thing I like about the abstraction level in Cloud Run, because we let you deploy a container image, and containers run anywhere, right? So you can, if you outgrow Cloud Run, then you can take your app and take it anywhere else, and then that's a bit less of migration work that you need to do.
And you're asking for career advice as well, since you're already a developer. Like AI is really an API REST endpoint. When serverless just started, like the way I got into AI was through using Amazon high-level services like Alexa or Textract or whatever was under the hood. So Cloud Run enables you really to move your Docker app directly into the Google Cloud. Just, and use the APIs of REST endpoints for any AI service. Anybody else looking for work or offering work? Jerry, was that the answer okay?
Yeah, and also, like I said, it seems like people, like organizations, aren't looking for this kind of stuff, unfortunately, and necessarily they want. Like my last job before I got laid off was I was actually by hand putting together clown formation stuff, and I was like, wait a minute, why am I doing this by hand? Why don't I just use something what we're doing today? To have it there's plenty our serverless, something like that. But there are still places out there, that companies that are doing things by hand and stuff like that.
Curtis, you had a question? No, just thanking us. Folks, did you do the survey? I can do. It's after midnight over there.
You did the double mute.
So sorry. So I will look up for the form. You guys do the survey. You still have a couple of minutes left, and then we'll wrap up Q&A. Give Manning award. So Wietse, are you planning to update the book or work on the new book, or like what's the plan? Like now,
Everyone asks me this
addicted.
question. Like I'm still building up appetite to write another book. It's a huge project, writing a book. I might write another book maybe at some point. It's wonderful to be, yeah. That's what I really learned from writing this book, is that as soon as you write about something, then you learn, like, because you need to verbalize your thoughts, and then you discover where all the gaps in your understanding are, right? So yeah, it's a great experience. Hey, there's another question. Could we switch between CPU always on to request mode after provisioning? Yes, you can switch every revision to a different pricing mode. And that's I didn't even mention the pricing model. So the default one is you only pay for the resources that are the system, like the number of containers, memory, CPU that's allocated during request processing. The CPU always on, you pay for the entire lifecycle of the container. However, CPU and memory are 25% cheaper, and there's no per request fee. So doing the math and figuring out which one of those pricing models is cheaper is hard. So there is a automated recommendation in the Cloud Console that will look at your past usage, and that will say, hey, you have a really large request volume. We computed that you will save money, and this is like, I think there's even a dollar amount if you switch to the CPU always on pricing model.
Any other questions? Hey, I think you had one of the tutorials about running Olama on the Cloud Run, one of the blog posts. Was it?
Yeah, using CPUs.
So that may be interesting for folks looking
But if you're interested in Ollama, you definitely need to check out the live stream we have at the end of August.
So, okay, we have how many? A dozen people that did the form.
Sure, I'm on LinkedIn and I connect.
We can still, okay, I see one more name, 13 people. I will open the wheels of name. And then paste the names. And then Reneo came now. Anybody else who didn't do the form who wants their name in the raffle? No? Okay, let me share the screen. Can you stop sharing?
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. And let me move. Did I share?
Yes.
You can see the wheels of name.
Wheel of Fortune.
Wheel, yeah. Anybody else? Did I miss? Okay. Spin. Christopher, you with us? I will need your email address. If last time when we had a meetup, I had the wrong email address for the last time's winner, and we couldn't reach him. So Manning suggested we do the second name just in case I cannot locate Christopher's email correctly until the next meetup. So we'll do that. I'll remove you. Spin again. Or if they are in the mood, I'll ask them to give two products. Hey, you deserve it. You ask questions. Anupma. Please drop your email in the chat. So the precondition is I have to meet you. Oh, no, not meet you. I have to email you. And then nice folks from Manning will reach out to you to put any of the products of your choosing into your Manning dashboard. So that's it from me. Those who did not, so this is, we're coming to an end. Are there any other questions, like while you're still with us? Christopher, good. I need your email address in the chat. Okay, perfect. So congrats on your prizes. And I will stay here if anybody wants to chit chat after. Wietse, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. I owe you twice now. Looking forward to paying it back.
Yeah. No, I really liked this, and you're a great organizer because you do a great job of setting up this very friendly atmosphere and like make sure that people are feel safe to ask questions, and I really appreciate that.
Likewise. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. It's still sunny here, so.
Yeah, I can't say that about here.
Yep. Yeah, thanks a lot for the talk. It was very informative.
Awesome. Thank you for listening.